Hello, and welcome to Caroline's Crash Course. My name's Caroline, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Caroline. Hi, everybody. Let's open this meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Okay. As a reminder, this is only one person's perspective. I'm the one, just my perspective, so take what works. Comments are welcome. Any intimate or personal sharing can be sent to my email at meetgodwithme@gmail.com. Workbooks are available upon request. Listen, we got funding for workbooks, okay? Hit me up. So Sundays are always going to be a bit longer, just because of like the layout of what's in the workbook. But anywho, let's get on with it. So today we are on day 2. I'm such a nerd. I've sectioned my Bible out for like step 1, and then like each day of the week. So like I said, step 1A, step 1B, step 1C, like days 1, 2. Anyway, just so that I can remember what the heck's going on. So we're going to look more into step 1 today. We're in the dangers of self-deception, which comes up a lot in with the idea of personal powerlessness or the unmanageability of our lives, how we are unable to see our unmanageability or our powerlessness until we get to, the bottom, which is good because there's only one place to go from the bottom, and that's up. So we're in Judges chapter 16. We're going to read verses 1 through 31. We got some reflections, and then we'll go into our questionings. Okay. Judges chapter 16. Samson carries away Gaza's gates. Okay, this is a story about Samson. I don't know if y'all know about Samson. Pretty cool dude, pretty normal dude. Super strong, okay? But he's got some self-deception going on. Okay, let's look into it. One day, Samson went to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. It's okay. I'm just reading a book. It's just words out of the book, okay? Word soon spread. Actually, anytime there's an asterisk, I'm probably going to stop. Some manuscripts don't have that word soon spread, but this one does. So, word soon spread that Samson was there. So the men of Gaza gathered together and waited all night at the town gates. They kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, "When the light of morning comes, we will kill him." Now, you'll read a lot about killing, death, dying, whatever, in the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament was translated from Hebrew, and there are some places where the word death or dying or kill or whatever is figurative from the idea of like the destruction of, like, the result of sin, which is destruction, so like your own personal downfall, or it's like a literal meaning, like to literally die. In the New Testament, the Greek, oftentimes when they say dead, what they mean asleep. So there's a different context. So, but right now we're talking about they're actually going to try to kill this guy, okay? Unalive him. But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the 2 posts, and lifted them up. Listen, dude's strong, okay? Lifted them up, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way to the top of the hill across from Hebron. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who was in the valley of Sorek. Listen, some people get confused they think that Delilah was the lady of the night that he was hanging out with before. This is a separate text, okay? We don't know much about Delilah, at least not in this context. But anyway, I just want to separate the two. Those are two different people. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "Entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be overpowered and tied up securely." Ugh. Don't go to somebody's lady and be like, "Give me the juice about your old man." Not cool. Not cool, Philistines. Okay, then each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver, which that means 28 pounds of silver. So each one of them is going to give her 28 pounds of silver for telling them what his downfall is, basically, where his weakness is. So, love or money, you got to pick one, babe. She picks the money. Hate to tell you. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me what makes you so strong and what it would take to tie you up securely." What? Okay. Why would he? Okay. Anyway, he's in love. Love's gonna make you do something dumb. Samson replied, "If I were tied up with 7 new bowstrings that have not been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else." So the Philistine rulers brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings, and she tied Samson up with them. She had hidden some men in She had hidden some men in one of the inner rooms of her house, and she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." We don't like her. But Samson snapped the bowstrings as a piece of string snaps when it is burned by a fire. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Afterward, Delilah said to him, "You've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now please tell me how you can be tied up securely." This is a red flag, okay? Samson should have got the heck out of there, right? Sorry, Delilah, it's not working out. But he's in love. Listen, we're gonna let people that we love do some stuff that is not okay. Sometimes people let us do things because they love us. That's not okay, right? Anyway, Samson replied, "If I were tied up with brand new ropes that had never been used, I would become as weak as anyone else." So Delilah took the new ropes and tied him up with them. The men were hiding in the inner room as before. And again Delilah cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But again Samson snapped the ropes from his arms as if they were thread. Then Delilah said, "You've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now tell me how you can be tied up securely." Samson replied, "If you were to weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric on your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I would become as weak as anyone else." So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair. Listen, you keep telling her all these things. What's it going to take to weaken you? What's it going to take to tie you up? What's it going to take, right? She keeps trying the things that you're saying. Like you're catching her do these things. Bro. Okay, anyway. So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair into the fabric. Then she tightened it with the loom shuttle. Asterisks. Oh. Some manuscripts don't have that in there. Okay. Again she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you." But Samson woke up, pulled back the loom shuttle, and yanked his hair away from the loom and the fabric. Then Delilah pouted. "How can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me?" Hello? Okay. That's not love. I mean, I guess, okay, love probably would be letting someone know what could kill you and then trusting them not to. But in this situation, obviously she can't be trusted. Okay. How can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong. She tormented him with her nagging day after day until he was sick to death of it. Ugh. Finally, Samson shared his secret with her. Look, he's just trying to shut her up. My hair has never been cut, he confessed, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. Delilah realized he had finally told her the truth. So she sent for the Philistine ruler. Come back one more time, she said, for he has finally told me his secret. So the Philistine rulers returned with the money in their hands. I don't like this. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head in her lap, and then she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. So when it says she began to bring him down, there's an asterisk there, and that means, or she began to torment him. The Greek version reads, he began to grow weak. Yeah. Well, telling someone the truth does sometimes make you weak. In this context, it leads to his downfall. But we'll see how sometimes telling the truth, yes, it makes you weak, but when you do that, when you admit your powerlessness, your weakness, it actually is the point where God is now able to intervene. When you're hiding your weakness and you're not admitting that, you're blocking yourself off from receiving help, right? From receiving God's glory. Okay. Then she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. When he woke up, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him and gouged his eyes out. Ugh. They took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow back. Oh yeah, here we go, Samson, here we go. The Philistine rulers held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god, Dagon. They said, our God has given us victory over the enemy, Samson. Okay, I was trying to read my writing. Dagon, the god, is like the god of fertility, the god of grain. Anyway, so they're worshiping this god of fertility. Basically, like, they are more interested in material satisfactions. They're worshiping a god that brings them material blessing, basically, rather than like spiritual blessing. Like there isn't much self-sacrifice or like selflessness that comes along with worshiping a god that is for your own selfish gain, basically. Which is why they eventually, like, that's why God wanted them to be destroyed, right? Because they're, anyway. So, and Samson was, this story is kind of a parallel. Samson's point, his job here is to, as Israel, to get rid of the Philistines, like get rid of the ones who worship false gods, basically. And we'll see here in a moment why he was tasked with that. Okay. The Philistine rulers held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god, Dagon. They said, our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, Our God, lowercase g, I love that, our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who killed so many of us is now in our power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, Bring out Samson so he can amuse us. So he was brought from the prison to amuse them, and they had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. Okay, you guys, here we just stop taunting a man of God. Samson said to the young servant who was leading, listen, and he's got his eyes gouged out, by the way. He can't even see what's going on. Okay, Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, Place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. I want to rest against them. Now the temple was completely filled with the people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me again. Oh God, please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes. Then Samson and now the eyes are very significant, but that's it for a different day. I'm trying to keep it simple and into the steps, but sometimes I just be breaking down this Hebrew stuff, and I'm like, let's get into the spiritual meaning of all of these things. But that's kind of advanced for someone who's at step 1, so we'll wait on that. Listen, y'all be taking notes. If there's anything that you're interested in, if you're a nerd like me and you want to like dig deep and really understand the Hebrew translations of some of this stuff, what the significance of certain things, please make a note, email me that, and maybe we can just talk about it one-on-one. That would be great. I would love that. I'm such a nerd. I love that. Then Samson put his hands on the 2 center pillars that held up the temple, pushing against them with both hands. He prayed, Let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers. Listen, all of them, all the rulers are there, and the people, and all the people. So he killed more people when he died. He killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives went down to get his body. They took him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol. I don't know how to say that. Where his father, Manoah, was buried. Samson had judged Israel for 20 years. Oh my goodness. Okay, OMG. Let's look at this. Our first reflection. The love affair between Samson and Delilah is one of the saddest examples of a dysfunctional relationship in history. It really is. Like he could have got out of there. But honestly, listen. It was dysfunctional. He probably should have got out of there, but he didn't. And at the time, you never know why. You never know why. Sometimes you just can't get out of stuff like that. You never know why. I personally am a firm believer, and it's proven right here, that relationship, he stayed when he should have left. That was God's will. Him doing that was a part of God's will. Whether it looked like it to anybody else or not, he had to stay for as long. We have to do everything we have to do. We have to endure everything we have to endure. And when it's time to get out, when it's time to exit or change course or start a different path or whatever, we will be notified. God will notify us, right? Every single thing will work out to glorify God. And look what happened. He was representing Israel in the Philistine camp. He gets imprisoned, right? He falls in love, gets imprisoned because of his, he exposes his weakness, which turns out to be the greatest victory. Not the greatest, because Jesus comes later, but this is a parallel of Jesus dying to save all these people. Like, Samson was sent to judge the Philistines, representing Israel to judge the Philistines, so that Philistines could be taken down, right? Anyway, but he would have never got to where he was at had he not fallen in love with Delilah, had he not endured this dysfunctional relationship. He would have never fulfilled his prophecy. He was meant to fulfill his prophecy. So all things work to glorify God. Okay, anyway, sorry. We are told that Samson did love Delilah, but Delilah clearly valued money above their relationship. Yeah, we all could tell. It should have been obvious to Samson. Thank you. It should have been obvious to Samson that Delilah was working with the Philistines to destroy him, but to get the physical pleasures he craved. Samson led Delilah on, staying in a situation he should have run from. Yep. He blindly believed he was virtually indestructible. Pride. I mean, dude was strong. Okay? This left him open to utter humiliation and suffering. If we hope to succeed in recovery, we need to recognize our weaknesses and avoid situations where we are vulnerable. Get honest with yourself. Stop pretending like you can manage better. This is a story of unmanageability, okay? And although God's will was fulfilled, because it always will be, whether we cooperate or not, God's will could have been fulfilled without him having his own personal destruction, right? But he didn't. He was selfish till the end, right? So it took the loss of physical sight for Samson to gain personal and spiritual insight. But that was not the end of the story. In his prayer to God, Samson finally admitted his helplessness and committed himself into God's hands. Notice that Samson accomplished more in his God-appointed death than in his entire self-centered life. Here, let me read that again. Notice that Samson accomplished more in his God-appointed death than in his entire self-centered life. And despite Samson's serious flaws, he was remembered as a man of faith. Yeah, because everyone's like, oh, Samson's a strong guy. He's remembered as this man of strength, this faith, right? The guy with the hair, right? And he had a lot of flaws. No one talks about that. Okay. People with lots of flaws can still have a very strong faith, and they can still fulfill God's prophecy, right? I just want to put that out there. Okay. Despite Samson's serious flaws, he was remembered as a man of faith. We can only imagine how Samson would have altered history had he been committed to God throughout his life. Yep. But God's will be done, whether we cooperate or not. Really, like, stop fighting, though. Like, what? Aren't you tired? We need to examine our lives for missed opportunities and then determine not to miss them when they arise again. Okay, so our step, so dangerous self-deception. This is our step devotional. We admitted we were powerless over our problems, that our lives had become unmanageable. When we refuse, why did I say that like that? When we refuse to admit our powerlessness, we are only deceiving ourselves. Yeah, totally. And I think it's harder for people who have like top tier physical abilities too, because then a lot of people think like, oh, I can manage on my own, right? And when I say physical abilities, I don't just mean strength. I mean like, monetary, physical, like material stuff, right? Also physical. Okay. The lies we tell ourselves and others are familiar. I can stop anytime I want to. I'm in control. This one won't hurt anything. And all the while, we are inching closer to disaster. Wake up. Wake up, Samson. Samson was one of Israel's judges. As a child, he had been dedicated to God, and God had gifted him with supernatural strength. But Samson had a lifelong weakness, the way he related to women. Samson was especially blinded to the dangers he faced in the relationship with Delilah. I think that's interesting. Listen to this, the way that this correlates. So he was blinded by his weakness with women. And then because of his weakness with women, his eyes were taken. right? Okay, listen. This is too much. That's too much. Anyway, we'll do it later. His his enemies were paying her to discover the secret of his strength. 3 times she begged Samson to tell her his secret. Each time she set him up and tried to hand him over to the enemy. 3 times Samson lied to her and was able to escape, but each time he got closer to telling her the truth. Finally, Samson revealed his secret, was taken captive, and died a slave in enemy hands. Samson's real problem can be found in the lies he told himself. By not admitting his powerlessness, he remained blind to the obvious danger that his pride and desire for beautiful foreign women were leading him. That's funny. That's funny that they put that in there. All right. He remained blind. Oh my gosh, my ribs. This baby, y'all. This baby is kicking my butt. By not admitting his powerlessness, he remained blind to the obvious danger that his pride and desire for beautiful foreign women were leading him into. This caused him to gradually inch his way toward an untimely death. We need to be careful not to fall into a similar trap. As we learn to acknowledge our powerlessness over our addictive or compulsive tendencies daily, we will become more aware of behaviors that will likely lead us to destruction. Okay. That's a lot. All right, listen. So let's get into the questions in our little workbook. The dangerous self-deception. Okay, question number 1. What is the longest time I have been able to stop addictive behaviors or using addictive substances? Yeah, so okay, listen to this. What is the longest time I have been able to stop addictive behaviors or using addictive substances? Now, during addiction, the longest time I had been able to stop addictive behaviors or using, well, I didn't even think about it that way. Behaviors? I don't know. And I just wrote like about a month. Like about a month on my own is like all I can manage. But I didn't even think about I mean, I could go without substances for about a month. But as far as the addictive behaviors, I don't even know. Probably not long. Okay, number 2. What are some of the reasons I use for starting my behaviors or substance abuse again? Dang. When I read this, I didn't read it as deep as I'm reading it now. This is awkward. So some reasons why I would start to use again, like back and before, I don't use anymore, but to celebrate, or boredom, right, or denial, right, or like self-righteousness. Self-righteousness is my downfall. That's usually where I end up. Well, it used to be where I would always, really, pretty much always. That's a contradiction. Most of the time, if I were, when I was out there, if anytime I went back to the substances, I mean, I didn't really ever try to quit, but when I was separated from drugs and alcohol for a time, anytime I came back to it, it was because of self-righteousness in one form or another. And I can definitely see how my addictive behaviors or like my compulsive behaviors in sobriety definitely stem from a place of self-righteousness. It could be because I feel like probably there's some justification in there. Like I will justify some things that I do even though they might not be right, because that's self-righteousness, right? Anyway, any hoozles. So number 3, what are the things I think I can control? How do I lie to myself, and about what? This is hard, okay? Now I know that I can't control much, but in addiction, other people's behavior, my own limit while drinking, it will be different, just, oh, okay, yeah. It'll be, like, I would say to myself, like, it will get different. Like, it'll be different. Just stay a while longer. Just stay around. Just try this longer. Wait and see. Like, well, I would stay, just like Samson, I would stay in a toxic situation with this, like, believing this lie that what I was seeing would somehow change into what I wanted it to be. Like, I live in, like, a fairy tale land sometimes, a fantasy land, where I have this depiction of, like, what would be ideal, and then I look at what's happening that is, not ideal, and I'm like, I see potential. And I will stay in an environment that is hurtful or harmful to me, and then I will end up engaging in harmful behavior, waiting for this fantasy to come true. So that's definitely a lie that I tell myself. And I still sometimes think I can control other people's behavior, not just an addiction. Obviously, I can't. Like, I know I can't, but I think I can sometimes. And so when I see the reality of things, sometimes I deny it. Like, it's really hard to accept the unmanageability of life sometimes. So yeah, so toxic relationships, fear of abandonment, the fear of loneliness. I don't know what that's about, but I lie to myself about what's going on so that I can avoid facing those fears. 4, what is so scary about telling the truth? The truth exposes my weakness. That's just as it. Listen, I'm a Samsonite, I guess. I know that I have strength, but sometimes my strength, I feel like my strength will be taken away or weakened if the truth is exposed. Well, really, that's not true. We find in step 1 that our admission of personal powerlessness is actually our first step towards liberation and strength, and God's strength. I mean, wouldn't you rather have a supernatural strength than human strength? Yeah, hello. Okay, so the truth exposes my weaknesses. Good is the enemy of best. But I think sometimes that what I have is good, and I'm afraid to let that go in fear of best not coming. Does that make sense? Any hoozles. Number 5, as I explore powerlessness, what blind spots have I discovered? That I place my value on what I do have. The way people treat me is what I'm worth. Like, yeah, that's a blind spot I have discovered. The way people treat me is what I'm worth. What I have noticed, what I know intellectually that's hard to go from my brain to my heart, is like the way people behave and treat you is not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. We see the world as we are, not as it actually is. Okay, that's what the old man would tell me. And not the old, I mean, when I say the old man, I mean my spiritual advisor. But I place my value on what I have, and the people that, like, people treat me, the way people treat me is what I'm worth. But then, of course, listen, I set myself up because I put myself in situations where I see potential, I have this fantasy, I'm waiting for things to change, for reality to prove itself other than what it is, right? To prove in my brain that, like, what I thought was true. And then when the people who are showing me that they're not the person, and then I'm, like, harmed. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I put myself in that position. I've been relying on self-fulfillment, not God fulfillment. And if your God, whatever you follow or worship, is bringing you harm, or adding to your weakness, right? Then that's not God. My strength must come from a higher power. Like, if what you're worshiping, if what you believe in is bringing you harm, is adding to your weakness, not removing, like not strengthening you, it's not God. Okay, just a heads up. And I don't know if we have any. Yeah, so one more question. Question number 6. What are the results of pride in my life? Ugh. Pride kept me. Oh, well, I might not want to talk about that. Pride. Okay, I'll talk about it. Pride kept me married to an active heroin addict. Pride says like, oh, you're fine, you don't have to, right? And fear says, oh, you better not. So like I stay to prove myself or prove my strength. Like I stay in conflict. I stay in harm's way to prove my strength. That's my pride. That is 100% pride. Ugh, what an icky thing pride is. Okay, well, that was heavy. I pray that we can see. I used to pray this all the time. I don't know why I don't do this anymore. I need to start doing this. Can you do this with me, you guys? I used to pray to see danger before I make the mistakes that lead to danger. Like to have eyes to see what's going on, like to have like some foresight, right? Some discernment. When we are blinded by our powerlessness and believing this myth that our lives aren't actually unmanageable, this delusion of manageability, oh man, that's hard. Like, it's hard to, we will inevitably end up in harm's way until we hit bottom. Like, we gotta hit bottom. And I pray that I don't have to like hit bottom as hard. I'm so glad that I'm sober now. But sometimes we have to hit bottom hard. Sometimes our figurative eyes are taken from us. Sometimes we have to practice those destructive behaviors just one more time. Just one more time to really understand our powerlessness. And I remember, man, that one last time for me when I was using, I was just like nothing extreme would happen. A lot of extreme things happened before that, but that last time, I was just like, I just woke up. I was like, what am I doing? Like, there was no destruction anymore. I just was so empty. Like, nothing crazy happened. There was no big catalyst. I was just like defeated and empty and alone, and went back to AA. Anyway, I'm so grateful to be sober. I'm grateful for that one last time. You know, sometimes we just gotta take that one last time to get full knowledge of our condition. All right, anyway, that's not the end of the story though. There's gonna be victory. In the name of Jesus. Okay, love you guys. Make good choices, contemplate, think about this stuff. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And be aware of the dangers of self-deception. We should probably be seeking God's vision and for our lives. If you're at step 1 and you're like actually at step 1, you haven't done the steps yet, I would recommend getting a big book, an AA big book. But yeah, it's hard to understand the God stuff. I imagine you're here because you are a believer in Christ, or you want to believe in Christ, and that's why you're watching a Christian step study. But if you're just trying it out for the first time and don't have a relationship with a God at all or a higher power at all, there could be some contention there. And please email me if you have questions, or if you're just like, the God thing's kind of, we can talk about it. I have no intention of pushing anything on anyone. I'm not an evangelist or anything. First things first, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, so I understand. Anyway, Jesus loves you. I love you. Make it a great day. The choice is yours. Bye.